How many more managers are you going to lose before you learn? Most restaurants don't have a management problem. They have a leadership problem. We keep hiring managers, replacing managers, but we're not developing them, so they keep leaving. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the leadership position. And hopefully this will be helpful to anybody out there that has management turnover that's really, really high. My name is Neil Hollingshead. I've been doing this for about 30 years. This is the Restaurant Within, and we'll be talking about things that happen within the four walls of a restaurant. So the manager's role is the most critical role in the entire organization. Once the development of the concept is put into place, the prototype is developed, the biggest thing that you've got left is the management. And obviously the managers are going to create the culture inside of the restaurant as an extension of the or upper management, whatever the leadership structure is. Teaching managers to overcome the distractions that are in restaurants has got to be the number one challenge out there in the entire industry. How do you get around all of the distractions in place and keep a positive attitude? Keep bringing the energy, keep bringing the heat. That's the determination and the focus that forges out the art of this industry. How do you overcome all of the little things to deliver what you want to deliver, the culture you want to deliver, the fun, the energy that you want to deliver? There are so many flat restaurants out there these days. I couldn't count them if I wanted to, because it's a beatdown. Every manager's waiting on that next big phone call for what they didn't do. They didn't make labor. They got another paycheck. This is the end of another period, yet another period that we didn't make bonuses. Just another way of emphasizing to a management team that we're just not good enough. We've done everything that we know how to do, but we can't win the game. And the reality of it is there's not a lot of leadership there to help them, because what they have to do is to efficiently know what to focus on to help them win the game, what things really matter, and when do you slow things down just enough to make the points that you need to make. It's just like a server being at a table. They can run 1,000,000 miles an hour, but if they stop and listen to people that are trying to talk to them, especially guests that are trying to make a point to order an item, that's service. It comes across that way. The same thing can happen to managers, but they get overlooked and blown by an awful lot, and they feel it and they know it. But at the end of the day, managers have bills to pay, and I know more managers that are employed to pay their bills than I know that enjoy the job. Now, right now, I work for a company that does a fantastic job of making people enjoy what it is that they do. But I'm 55. It took a long time to find that, and it's not around every corner. Every organization that I've been involved with has got ups and downs. There's a way to look in the mirror and stop some of the madness, because at the end of the day, if you give a manager the respect that they deserve, if you are good at delivering the art of hospitality, if you're good at making sure they know what they're good at first and foremost, it gives you the energy and focus that you want to have to focus on the things that maybe you're not good at. And even after doing this for 30 years, I'm not perfect at everything. I have lots of flaws, but I know what I can do well. I know when it's time for the team to listen, when it's time for me to listen. But it took a long time to figure that out. And if you're an owner or a manager, or you are in the leadership business, there's a give and a take. Most people want to be heard in order to hear you. A lot of the managers out there know exactly what needs to happen with the organization for it to be a rock star, for it to be something that can really make a difference. And it's just hard for organizations to change. Once they think that they've got an answer to how they want management to go, it's just a grind after that. If the ownership is not proactively positive in every way they know how to be, then the culture is very difficult to establish in a restaurant. But inside the four walls, although it's difficult, the better the general manager, the better the culture. And that general manager oftentimes has to separate out static that's coming from outside of the four walls, whether it's emails, updates about sales, updates about labor, updates about repair and maintenance, or all the different things that go along with just running a really great facility. Then that general manager, and this is what makes the culture so unique, you have to be able to take all of those things that are going outside the four walls and get to a place where you can walk in the door and be ready to pump everybody up, be ready to deliver some energy. If you don't feel like you can do that, don't ever get into a management role. If you're one of those people that likes to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream. But I would tell you that in a restaurant, you've got to be able to deliver the energy regardless of circumstances. And I know nobody's ever going to do that perfectly, but I can tell you, if you can go in and deliver the energy, if you can go in and develop credibility in that team, you have to remember every relationship in that team is like a checking account. You can't get something out of it you didn't put into it. So if you want people in that team to do something for you, then you have to do your part. Now, there's a big question mark about what is that part. Well, that part is creating consistent positive energy in that room. Always. That has to be the standard for how you do what you do. Everybody else should be able to make a decision on whether they want to be or not be a part of your team based off of that standard. If you're bringing the energy, they'll bring the energy most of the time. You're going to run into sometimes lesser performing people that are not interested in having positive energy. And I would ask you, what are you doing with them in your building? What can they do for you? And you have to be able to connect just enough. And I would say your time management should allow for about the same amount of time for everybody in the team. Obviously, as a general manager, you've got to spend your time evaluating the movement of the managers beneath you. That's a reflection of your own behavior, how efficiently you get to them. How do you develop them? Do they keep their face forward? Do they keep their mind where their feet are? And if they do a great job of that, you can tell within minutes of walking into a restaurant because they'll be in the right places from 11 to 2 and 6 to 9. There'll be one in the dining room. There'll be one potentially in expo, however you're structured to do it, but their mind will be where their feet are. We are at our very worst when everything in the restaurant is dead. That's when nobody can focus. That's when we get the biggest oops out there, where we left a burger on the grill too long, or we left a guest sitting in the dining room that didn't get greeted. Everybody got distracted. This all comes with efficiency, keeping the right number of people in the restaurant, especially for the servers out there. In some states, servers are only $2.13 an hour, and the mentality is, well, I can keep as many of them on the floor as I want to. Well, not really, because every time you see a huddled up group of servers, most of the time they're not discussing what a great management team they have. They're discussing how they're not making money. They're talking about all the different opportunities out there. They're talking about the things that are going on in this world that are not in your restaurant. So what do you do to fix that? Well, you make the schedule efficient. You do enough homework that you're keeping the right number of bodies in the building when you need them. And that's never going to be perfect, but you can get close enough. You can get close enough to where they're making money, they're staying busy, and you can't get irritable every time a server comes up to you and says, hey, I'd like to be cut. Sometimes you can. If it's very, very busy and they have every opportunity to make money, I would say if that's the case and they're wanting to be cut, you may not be looking at a server. You might be looking at somebody that should be in retail. But if they're dead and their station's empty, you're just being stubborn if you don't cut them, because you don't need to be paying the bill anyway, and they're not going to do you any good. In order to be motivational in a restaurant, it has to be efficient. And for it to be efficient, you got to do your homework. I've said it a million times. Everything that you can do to make a dinner shift go the right way is done before 5 p.m. And I learned that from some very smart people over my career. But the schedule's already made. The number of people to select is already there. The choices of the type employees you're going to have on that shift, those decisions were made. Whether you do or don't have enough food, all prepared the right way, stations are ready to go, and everything's done. All that's done before 5 o'clock. So the planning is a big, big piece of how well that place runs. But the motivation for a good management team, they're usually just a reflection of the ownership and the system and general managers. If they are approached in a positive way, if they get good energy, they'll give out good energy. If they're manipulated, they're going to be manipulative. If they're treated with hospitality and respect, they're going to treat other people the same way. I would say that bonuses come into play with managers. You can't pay anybody enough money to live miserably. However, when you've got a good running business and you're treating people well and they're treating other people well, bonus money every period for managers makes a statement. For companies that don't pay them hardly at all, well, you're losing out on some motivation out there that's possible. I would never tell anybody to give out a bonus if a restaurant's losing money. Never. I would never do it. And I would never suggest it. However, If the restaurant's making money, it's not really right necessarily either not to have some type of encouragement for the management to do a better job than they're doing of putting more money in the bank. It'll just make you more money. But even worse, I think, is the companies out there that have structured bonus programs, but nobody can ever find the magical combination for how to actually make them. That destroys the credibility of the company by itself because everybody thinks it's a joke. But I don't think bonuses really, at the end of the day, are the core. I do think they're a major asset when they're there. I've seen a lot of managers overcome a lot of things because of a bonus program. I don't think it makes or breaks you. I think what makes and breaks managers in their units is how they get treated. If they have a good lifestyle outside of the restaurant, if they come in and they're being taught, which is probably the number one thing that's missing, is they're not being taught how to be efficient at what they do, how to come in, stay productive for 10 hours, knock out your business and go home. Too many things get too relaxed. First thing we want to do when doors are locked at night, turning music on wide open and everybody gets to jam out. I've just never been like that. As soon as we're through making money, I'm tired of being there. Music's off, we're getting cleaned up, I'm ready to go. And everybody understands me that way, but I've always been like that. If you're a newer let's say you're an employee level person and you're thinking about getting into a manager position, you need to look really closely at what it takes to do that job, because you need to be courteous enough to where you are one of the most courteous people in the entire building as a way of doing business, as a personal standard to how you handle business. At the same time, you also have to be a person that doesn't mind positively bringing up the things that really people do really well. Do you do a good job of giving people a pat on the back? Do you recognize when somebody's really done a great job? And then do you have it inside of you in a sidebar conversation, maybe even with a witness if it's a discipline situation? Do you have it in you to say, I need you to do these other things or you're not going to be able to make it here? Now, I know that sounds rough, but I'm the kind of guy that if you don't tell people that, then how do they know where you stand? And being able to say those kinds of things is a major part of the alignment. When I hire people, I spend so much time with people before I even sign off on them being employed, because I want them to understand I'm a different kind of person. I'm not necessarily all that easy to work with. And I'm easy to work with in terms of being courteous, but I'm not easy to work with in terms of being in second place. It's not my place. I want to be winning the game. And I have to articulate to them that that is the standard. There is no other standard. If I come in second place, we are changing stuff today. That's the way this works. And if you sign on to working for me, that is the deal. And if you ever behave otherwise, I don't have a place for you. You can call out sick. If you don't think you've got it today, give me a call. I'll let you take the day off if there's any way possible. Hey, I'm here for you. I want to be support. But at the end of the day, none of those other distractions are going to get between me and knocking it out of the ballpark today. And managers have to have that mentality. They have to be able to go in that door and, just like a battery going in a toy, charge it up and get everybody else charged up too. And one thing's for sure, you know, when you walk into the restaurant and I'm there, it's going to be energized. I'm bringing the heat today. That's the way it's going to be. Now, how do you get managers that are like that? You got to develop people, because there are some that have the energy, some that have the smarts. There's just lots of different people on this planet, but you got to know who you're hiring for what when you hire them, especially as managers. There are a million different kinds of managers out there as far as the strengths and weaknesses. Every person is like a different fingerprint. They're all good at something and they're all bad at something. If you can't do your own internal developments and be growing managers, then you got to look further in the mirror about what's the agreement between you and the people that you're hiring. Because out of a whole restaurant full of people, you can't find one person that wants to move forward. Your hiring practices need work. And I've been in a lot of cities where hiring was impossible. But at the same time, I also know how to go to job placement programs. In some of the cities I've been in, the people in job placement programs knew me by first name because I brought them food all the time. So they always sent me the best candidates. That's how I won several cities that I've been in. It's not a secret, but how do you develop that type of focus and determination? And you want to have a great quality of life. This is what beats down managers, is because they start off from an employee level, they get in a manager's position, and they want that great quality of life that they might see other managers have. And I'd love for them to have that too. And with the right leadership, you can achieve that, but you got to be learning and growing. I didn't go that way. If it took me 24 hours to do the job, that's what I did until I learned to do it in 12. And then I learned to do it in 6. And then I learned to do it in 3. And that's the bottom line. If you were to watch me in an office, you'd think sometimes I was a tornado, because I come in there and get 20 things done in 10 minutes and get out of there. I don't like being in the office. I would say that's another qualifier. If you've ever got somebody that enjoys sitting in that office all the time, they're not going to help business very much. You're going to have to deal with them, and you're going to have to make sure that they have an interest in doing what you want to do. But there are so many managers, and I tried for decades to get managers that would help me in a very positive way to develop a team. And I always knew that the managers that I had were really, really good people, and I knew they had the smarts, and I knew they had the energy. They had the experience. All of that was there. But for decades, I kept running into these side rails of perspective, how these managers looked when they were doing what they were doing. I finally singled it out after 2 decades of trying to do things another way. I finally realized that I really don't need my managers to do anything other than get perfectly good employees in every position. And a lot of times I'll have managers do a manpower plan where they'll shade certain people into green, yellow, and red. And in that mindset, we know who is likely to do a great job on that schedule, who is kind of middle of the road, may or may not, and people that are in the red that are probably not going to be around much longer. And I encourage those kind of manpower plans, because what I try to get the managers to do is to give their undivided attention to the people that are in the green. And I don't care whether they convert people that were in the yellow and red, which hopefully we can do. We want to be able to train people up, or whether they hire from outside and just bring in new bodies. But along the way, the thing that I tell them is, as you hire people and as you make the changes that you make, the people in the yellow and in the red are not going to have the hours and the positions that they used to have. And you're probably going to get some complaints. So when you do, instead of getting completely side railed with all that, I want you to send them to me. And the reason that I did that was so that I could sit with the managers in those development meetings and give them the best chance for survival. But unfortunately, the best chance for survival is to make sure they know the story. And it always sounds kind of similar. I love the energy that you bring to my restaurant. I feel fortunate to be able to work with you, but you are making the decision to do these things the wrong way. And if you stay on this path, you're not going to be able to work here anymore. But I want to help you, because I'd like to see you really do big things and have some fun and win the game. That's the conversation. And I genuinely mean it. I don't want to lose a soul. I want to help everybody to win the game. But in order for them to win the game, they have to understand, number one, that I'm a fan. I spent too many times I would get on to somebody for being late. Hey, need you to come to work on time. And that employee would come away with a sense of, well, Neil thinks I'm the worst employee on the planet. And I used to wonder, are they playing games with me? Because it would go on over and over and over again. I finally, after too many years of being a hardhead, I finally realized that employees know what you tell them. And if you don't tell them that you appreciate them, if you don't tell them they did a great job, if you don't tell them that you want them to be a part of the team, but they're making these decisions, if you just go at somebody and say, hey, you're late and I need you to be at work on time, that's all they know. And so to come better than that, I don't ever do that anymore. Now, when I go to somebody, the very first thing that I do every time is I remind them that I do appreciate them. I do want to work with them. I'm a fan of theirs. But I also let them know we're not going to be able to work together unless you are wanting to win the game too. And so that's the name of the game. That's the way I play it. I would just tell you that as far as hiring managers goes, that's probably the hardest thing to learn how to do, because there are so many managers that think that they can sit across the table from somebody and be able to tell me what kind of person they are. And you can't. I repeat that, you can't. You cannot sit across from the table from somebody. I don't care who you are. And I know every manager in this whole world just said, you know what, this guy's crazy. I'm great at it. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm great at. I'm great at looking behind a manager and looking at their history and telling you what they've done before. If they've been in 10 different restaurants, all of them for a year to 2 years, they're going to be with you for a year to 2 years. I'm out of the hero business. They're going to do the same thing for me they did for everybody else. If they stayed at the last job for 5, 10, 15 years, the odds of them being a long-term person working for somebody like me is really, really good, because I set expectations right in the beginning. I'm always aggressively trying to get better. And so I have a huge opportunity for success with people like that. The thing that I have to look for people that are in that situation, people that like to stay in a job long-term, sometimes those people can be because of complacency. So there is an agreement that has to take place prior to saying, hey, I love the experience. I love the background. I love what you have. Now, do you want to eat? That's the question. And if you do, I'm ready to work with you. If you're not ready to eat, maybe the next guy. Maybe you should go to work down the road with somebody that maybe just glad to hang in there today. That's not me. So anyways, that's my 2 cents worth on managers. I went way over my time, but thank y'all for your time, and looking forward to do the next episode. Again, this is The Restaurant Within, and thank y'all for your time.